Well, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff has given more details of the complex military operation, which was codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer. U.S. B-2 Spirit bombers dropped what are known as bunker-busting bombs for the first time on two nuclear sites at Fordo and Natanz. And a U.S. submarine fired Tomahawk missiles at a third nuclear site in Isfahan.
Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise. In total, U.S. forces employed approximately 75 precision-guided weapons during this operation. This included, as the president stated last night, 14 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, marking the first ever operational use of this weapon.
All right, I want to go now to Marina Miron. She's with King's College London. She's a military analyst. Marina, good to see you. How significant are the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites?
Good day, Brent. It is very difficult to tell right now because right now the war is taking place in the information spectrum above all, with the US, of course, saying that all aims have been achieved. But what does it mean exactly? Has the Fordo facility been destroyed or incapacitated to such a state that it cannot be refurbished and repaired again in order to resume the nuclear program? Same goes to Isfahan, for instance. So one side is saying we did everything and it worked and it's fine, but it will depend on the battle damage assessment, on the real battle damage assessment to be able to estimate whether it worked or not from a military perspective. Because from Iran, there is footage of smoke rising up from the Fordo facility, for instance. But again, we know that the facility is some 90 to 100 meters underground, and it's quite fortified. And these GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrators, have never been used. There are differing numbers in terms of how many of those have been dropped. Some sources say about 6 of them, some say even more, some say less. So we don't know the exact amount that was dropped on the Fordo facility, which seemed to be kind of the key of this operation, because it is the one that is the heaviest, the more difficult, the most difficult to destroy. Pardon me. And so right now, what we will see, both sides will be claiming victory in some sense. And of course, you can say that the US B-2s have not been shot down or even targeted by Iranian air defenses. They managed to successfully conduct the operation, but how much military and strategic effect it will produce, it still remains to be seen.
The Pentagon has disclosed, we just found out today, that these bunker-busting bombs have been used for the very first time. How effective were they? I mean, can we say at this point?
Referring to my previous answer, it is the first time that they're being used. We have two sides claiming something different. There was smoke rising up, but essentially they have done damage. But have they done enough damage in order to destroy the facility? That is a question. Can it be rebuilt again? And I don't think that that information is available. And if it is available, of course, it will not be revealed by neither side for obvious reasons. And right now, what is being portrayed is a singular demonstration of force by the United States to force Iran into submission. And Iran is demonstrating quite the opposite, saying, the Iranian media, that the earth wasn't shaking, there wasn't much being done, and the facility is damaged but still largely intact. So who do we believe? Yeah. We don't know. Realistically, we cannot know what is happening there.
Iran has said that the U.S. has now crossed a big red line. I ask you, what I've been asking our other guests. What do you think Iran's options are now? Are we talking about some form of direct retaliation, or are we talking about Iran using its proxies to carry out attacks?
I think before deciding whether to conduct this strike, the US administration would have weighed the risks and benefits of doing so. And one of the things that we have seen happen is the deployment of carrier strike groups to the North Arabian Sea, Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean area, there are missile defense ships which would help intercept ballistic missiles targeting US bases in the Middle East and as well as Israel. So I think that this option has already been considered, that Iran might start targeting not just Israel, but also US bases outside of Israel, or if it's not Iran itself, it could be Iranian proxies. And so certain measures are being taken now in order to protect those assets. Another option, which the Iranian side certainly hasn't mentioned, is closing the Strait of Hormuz, which we don't know whether it will happen. That would be a different tool. So away from the kind of military toolbox, it will, of course, affect the global crude prices, and we see the markets are quite volatile. The prices are rising, and that could be very damaging for the world economy if Iran indeed does that, because that strait is used by other Arab countries, and the insurance for vessels traveling through the strait have risen, skyrocketed even in the past days. So that is another option. Now, the problem is, if you look at Iran, Iran is, of course, bigger than Israel, but it has a lot of issues due to sanctions in terms of military technology. So it will be very difficult to fight two foes at the same time, specifically when it comes to the United States. Those are formidable foes, and Iran realizes it. I don't think there is a chance of Iran actually capitulating, or the chance is very slim, maybe 5 to 10%. But I think that Iran might actually use a combination of tools at its disposal, because what Iran could benefit from, learning from history, is a war of attrition that is designed to wear down especially the US political will. And at this stage, we don't know what next steps will be taken by Donald Trump because of the partial domestic backlash to what has happened, specifically from the Democrats. And so Iran might also, and this will be a very important component, ask, and I believe it's already happening, ask its allies, such as China, such as Russia and North Korea, to come and help it. And for now, the Russians have been very cautious in the diplomatic and the informational sphere when it comes to criticizing Israel, also because of the Soviet expats living there. So it is a very tricky question for the Russians. But I think covertly there might be, and that one specific area involves air defenses. And that is something that the Russians could supply Iran with. Now, for the Chinese, the military options might be much more limited, but the Chinese could provide components and maybe other technology. So there are quite a lot of options here that are on the table for Iran. The question is, of course, what kind of aid will Iran get when, and how much of it? And this needs to be known to the Iranian leadership in order to decide which course of action it will take. And perhaps an important point here, if we remember the US involvement in the Middle East, back then Al-Qaeda's leader, al-Zarqawi, said we have the near enemy and the far enemy. And the near enemy are the Shias, and the far enemy, the United States. And so first we fight them, and then we can settle our differences with the Shias. And this is something that could happen here as well, where groups, violent non-state actors, if you will, in the Middle East or across the Middle East, such as Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, and others who are not necessarily Shia would jump on board to defend Iran. And that is a very serious matter for Middle Eastern security. Of course, we have the Houthis and the Red Sea issue, which might also be involved here. So the Houthis already declared that they will, if the US strikes Iran, they will target US vessels and so on. But there are so many other actors there of which we don't even know that they exist until it actually happens. If we remember the Syrian civil war, there were 120 of such groups just within Syria. So you can imagine the extent if we look at countries like Syria right now, Iraq as well, being not very stable. So these groups could join in, and then it would complicate matters. And especially if the United States decides to deploy troops, which is another matter which there is a huge question mark how far the United States will go. So essentially right now we can only wait and see, but the most likely scenario is that Iran will respond because now it's cornered and it will be fighting for its survival with whatever means they have. And that is what might be, is the most likely thing that might happen here.
Okay, military analyst Marina Miron. Marina, as always, we appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says that Israel and the United States, that they both crossed a red line by attacking Iran's nuclear facilities.
The world must not forget that it was the United States which, in the midst of a process to forge a diplomatic outcome, betrayed diplomacy by supporting the genocidal Israeli regime's launch of an illegal war of aggression on the Iranian nation. Not content with such malign actions, the United States itself has now also opted for a dangerous military operation and aggression against the people of Iran. In doing so, the US administration holds sole and full responsibility for the consequences of its actions, including the Islamic Republic of Iran's right to self-defense under the principles of the United Charter. In accordance with the UN Charter and its provisions allowing a legitimate response in self-defense, Iran reserves all options to defend its security interests and people.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Robert Chatterjee. He's the deputy editor of Zenith magazine, which focuses on the Arab and Islamic world. It's good to have you with us. So Iran says that it reserves all options to respond here. Talk us through the options that Iran has.
Well, the options are limited, especially on the military side, but there are some strategic options, although they are rather short-term than mid or long-term options. One option would be activate its network of regional allies to attack US personnel or bases. I think that is quite unlikely, not least because, first of all, Iran's not interested in drawing the US even more into this war. Also, most of the US bases in Iraq, for example, have been evacuated. Also, the Gulf states have made it clear they will not open their airspace for further American attacks. Other options include the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This is something that has been floated before, and there are reports that this has been that this approach could be taken, although this is not without risk for Iran itself, as the Iranians are also very dependent on this international trade route for the oil shipments, especially to China and other Eastern Asian states. So I think another option would be, especially the Houthis, who, mind you, have concluded a separate armistice with the United States just a month ago. So that would risk angering the Americans further. I think the Iranians want to get the US out of this war and basically leave Israel alone as they were before. And I think the Israelis were successful in drawing the US in. I think long term, this is a grave mistake that does not contribute to the region's stability and certainly also not to Israel's.
Well, how quickly do you think that a decision will be made by the leadership of Iran? There has been a lot of, we could say, turnover in the leadership in the last couple of weeks. Israel has successfully targeted certain military leaders. I mean, is that having an impact on the regime's ability to respond?
I mean, even before, there are different schools of thought on how to engage the West. And I think those kind of discussions will take place even going forward, maybe resulting in a shakeup of leadership, maybe within the Revolutionary Guard. But I think that the Iranians are the ones that could be pushing for more diplomacy, especially via Turkey. We just saw the Iranian foreign minister. He was in Istanbul. President Erdogan is very much interested in brokering peace. He's very well situated, as he's one of the few leaders in the Middle East that has actually a quite good relationships besides Netanyahu with Donald Trump. So I think we will see some more action on the diplomatic front involving Turkey and maybe other states behind the scene, especially Oman, which was already the site for negotiations between the U.S. and Iran before.
The U.S. president has said that they've destroyed the nuclear sites in Iran. Of course, we haven't seen evidence to verify that, but what do you think this means for the future in terms of any type of nuclear capacity for Iran? I mean, is this a goal that they think that they can afford to stick with now?
There are very conflicting reports on the outcome of these strikes. I think, as we saw in the reactions by the Iranians, it gives them even more incentive to even accelerate a nuclear program, because it just shows if you have nuclear deterrence, you're better off. That is a signal that we're sending. So another unwanted result of this ill-advised attack could be a withdrawal from the Iranians from the non-proliferation treaty, and also expulsion of inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Commission, and an acceleration of this program. I don't think that this program can be totally destroyed, even if they bomb these sites to smithereens, because of course that's why a lot of scientists were also targeted. But it's completely unrealistic to put just the military solution to this problem, as Israel is prone to. And let's not forget, the Israelis are not only targeting military sites; they have targeted a hospital. They have targeted state TV. They have targeted civilian populations, just as in other wars, and that has to be taken into consideration. I am pretty shocked that none of the situation that we have had in the Middle East, like 1 or 2 weeks ago, is even taken into consideration. That this is all being looked upon as it is happening in a vacuum.
What about Iran's allies, Russia and China? They've been relatively quiet, haven't they?
Well, China is not prone to direct military intervention, but they could potentially see an opportunity, seeing a lot of U.S. personnel being withdrawn from the Indo-Pacific. So the likelihood of an intervention of China and Taiwan actually increases. So even for American global interest, this was a very stupid action that they have taken. Other allies, this is more transactional, especially with Russia, and it's not quite clear who needs whom more, especially when it comes to, for example, drone production, as Iranian drones are very much in use in Russia against Ukraine, but this balance is always swinging, so this is hard to determine. Other than that, Russia doesn't really have any strength left to play a significant role in this Middle Eastern conflict, and they should not. This is a confrontation that should be rather seen in the context of the ongoing war that Israel is waging in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Syria, in Lebanon. And I think this is the right angle to look at this conflict. And Russia and China don't necessarily have a place in that scenario.
Robert Chatterjee with Zenith magazine. We appreciate your time and your insights today. Thank you.